The year 2000 Buffalo Bison's Information Guide indicates the greats of all time. Within the book is pitching coach Ken Rowe. Under career, it states that Ken Rowe pitched professionally for 15 seasons from 1953 through 1968 and spent parts of 3 seasons in the major leagues, earning a World Series ring with the Los Angeles Dodgers in 1963. What it doesn't tell you is this same Ken Rowe started his baseball career with the Jamestown Falcons in 1953. His manager was baseball's leading manager, Danny Carnevale, who hailed from Buffalo, New York. Among his teammates was in the upper left-hand corner Bob Shaw, who went on to win several games in the World Series in 1959 for the Chicago White Sox. And on the far right, the top row, is Jamestown's own Al Taylor. After 10 years in the minors, Ken Rowe would hit the big time in 1963 with the Los Angeles Dodgers. Here's his rookie card. And would appear again in the baseball card with the Baltimore Orioles in 1964. And finally, the year 2000 with the Buffalo Bisons. Having an opportunity to talk to Ken Rowe, your pitching coach for the Buffalo Bisons, and I've got a couple things here I'm sure you've seen, but...
Yeah, those are rare cards. There wasn't very many made. Actually, this says Orioles on it, but it was taken in Vero Beach when I was with the Dodgers. So I never really had a 63 card. Well, actually, I had not a 63 card. Yes, sir.
How did Ken Rowe end up in professional baseball?
Well, I always wanted to be a pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I was a good pitcher in high school. A little small town in Michigan, and if you could, do one thing in athletics pretty good, you were more or less a standout. And I had a good arm. I could throw a curveball. But I loved baseball. I remember in 11th grade, we had to stand up and say, "What would you like to do when you get out of high school?" And my first thing I said, and it might have sounded silly to some, but I said I want to be a pro ball player.
Mm-hmm.
And as luck would have it, I went on to be a pro ball player. So even got a chance to play in the big leagues for about a year and a half. Managed to coach in the big leagues a year and a half. So I kind of made the trips. And as a coach, I've been from the major league level to the rookie level and around again. So I've got a well-rounded career as far as coaching and playing. A lot of years in the minor leagues as a player, as a pitcher.
I'm going to show you a team picture. I don't know if you maybe can recognize a few of those folks. This was 1953. How did you end up?
That was taken, I think, after I left.
Probably at the end of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember. That was 53.
Mm-hmm.
There's Frank's a left-hander. And there's Danny Carnevale, the manager. And there's Al Benza. I remember this picture. Boy, these guys look awfully young. Because Gabby Waitaki was the catcher.
Right.
He's from Michigan. And I remember Gene Neff. I don't see George Alusic here.
Again, I think George may have left just before the end of the season.
He hit like 389, I believe. And Danny's club, Jamestown won the pennant by 19 and a half games that year. But I later went on to play with Al Benz in my second year and roomed with him in Greenville, Mississippi. Some of these guys I knew, but I don't see Bob Shaw there.
Oh, he's in the top row.
Okay, I see Bob right here. He came just after I left, or just before I left. McElroy and little second baseman. Pete Vittorero, was that it?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
He later broke his leg next year in '55 out in Idaho Falls.
Is that right?
His leg. And ended his career. There's Al Taylor, my roommate.
He was your roommate, huh?
Yeah, he was my roommate, and he was from Michigan. We came down on a bus together from Detroit.
How did that work? How did you get signed off the
I
high
got
school?
signed out of high school off the Sandlots, and that's when they had that bonus rule.
Mm-hmm.
If you received more than $4,000, they had to keep you in the big leagues for 2 years. Well, I got $3,250, and I got $750 up front. And if I stayed with the club 30 days, I'd get the other $2,500, which I did. Because even though they sent me to Jackson, Mississippi, in the Cotton States League, I think it was in June or something. But I was awfully wild. For some reason, I just couldn't throw a strike. And we didn't have the instructors that we had, that we have now. But I remember some things. I remember getting hit in the jaw in Batavia. Ramon Mejias hit a line drive back at me, hit me in the jaw. I threw my hand up like this and it hit my wrist, and then hit me in the jaw and knocked me off the mound. But we didn't have trainers, and then I just got back up and started pitching again. Yeah. I figured that was what you're supposed to do. And then we have a little catcher named Johnson, Jimmy Johnson. We were in Bradford on a Sunday afternoon, and I'd thrown a curveball going away, and the guy was stealing. And I went down on one knee to the side of the mound, and he tried to throw from one knee and hit me in the back of the head and knocked me out. So all this is going on in my first year. And I'm right out of high school. You know, I'd never been anywhere. And then I was in Batavia again, and I hit a double off the wall and went into second base, and somebody else got a base hit. And Jack Papke, I think, might have been the player manager, big old catcher, and he blocked home plate, and I slid in and busted up my knee, and I'm hobbling around, but you go out and pitch. Sure. Nowadays, you'd be in the hospital and you'd be on a DL for 10 days, but it wasn't that way.
Just didn't know any differently.
No, you just, who's going to come in, who's going to help you? They don't have 10 guys. We had like 8 pitchers or 9 pitchers.
How many guys were on the roster?
I believe 18. 18? 18, maybe 19. 2 catchers, an extra outfielder, extra infielder, that was about it. And in fact, Danny Carnavelli might have been a playing manager the year before that somewhere, so he probably could have played. He was a good shortstop before he hurt his back when he was with the Phillies. But I remember my first year very well. My salary was $200 a month. Is that right? We got $2.50 a day to eat on. And the way they rationalized that was, it was 75 cents for breakfast, 75 cents for lunch, and then $1 for your evening meal. And there was never anything in the clubhouse, There was never coffee, Cokes, nothing like that, ever, And then, that's just what it was. Now they got everything. Food, videos, movies, everything, games.
What's the name Jerry Klein mean to you?
Jerry Klein was our bus driver. He wrote a song. He wrote a lot of songs. He used to sing to us on the bus. Yeah. He drove us from Detroit down to Lakeland, Florida. There was myself and all the prospects, all the guys that just signed, and Williams, what's his name right here? Cy Williams was in charge of the bus trip, and Jerry was driving, and we had myself and George Burnett was on the club. He later went to, I don't know what, but he had a real good career, and not only in the big leagues, but the minor leagues and in Mexico. And then, of course, he died of a heart attack, I think it was. But Jerry wrote songs, and he sang it on our opening day. In fact, I still have the leaflet that they gave us at the banquet. No kidding. And it's got all the people who spoke there and so forth. I have it in my scrapbook. And Jerry got up and sang a song. It was called, the song was "You Kept It a Secret from Me." And he sang, if you had a curveball that broke like a bomb, you must have left it in the league you came from. 25,000 our scouts paid for you. You keep on losing 12 and 15 to 2. Why don't you quit baseball? Try something else instead. If you win a ball game, our team will drop dead. If you're a great pitcher that's now playing the sea, you kept it a secret from me. I still remember that. That's right. Jerry did it. Jerry Klein. And he had a cigar. Always had a cigar. Yeah, he was an institution there. Absolutely. I had a chance to go back to Jamestown when I was with Watertown in the Pony League. And We stayed at the Holiday Inn, and right down the street was that theater that was on a hill.
Right.
And I remember we got rained out one day. We first got there, and I went and saw Moulin Rouge.
I'll be there.
And there was a restaurant downtown. I remember we used to walk downtown. They used to give us 15% off on our meals, and we could pay them on payday. We could charge it. So we ate downtown. And then behind the ballpark, there was a little bar and grill that some of the guys used to go to.
Right.
And I lived on a rooming house on Faulkner Street, probably 2 blocks from the ballpark, because we used to walk back and forth.
Right.
But we knew Lucille Ball came from there,
Right.
and we had a saying, you had to be part goat to live in Jamestown because of the hills.
Right.
So, but
That's true.
Jamestown was and I remember the lady I roomed with. She worked for the city. I don't know what she did, but she always talked about Chautauqua.
Mm-hmm.
Lake Chautauqua and the programs they had there in the summertime. But it was a great experience. I wish I could have stayed there all year, especially when they won the pennant by 19 and a half games.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a start, and I have no regrets. I wish I could have done better, but like I say, I was wild, and I don't know what it was, but that experience maybe helps me relate to some of these kids,
Sure.
I'm sure it does in some respect. I know what they've been through. They haven't done anything that I haven't done,
Right.
bad or good.
Yeah.
So it's a good starting point in my relationship with some of these younger pitchers.
I'm going to see Al Taylor probably in the next couple of days.
I said hello.
Yeah.
I saw Al when I was in Rochester, and we came up. It might have been 66 or 67 to play an exhibition game.
Mm-hmm.
And I came up, and Al came to the ballpark, and I talked to him for a little bit.
See, my hope is that if there is ever a break in the action during the summer, we can get you down there, the Chautauqua Institution. Maybe just get a chance in an afternoon game if you have an evening game.
We'll see.
We'll get the Bison's guys to send a limo down for you.
Geez,
Because, they own the Jammers.
Yeah. But, I still remember that ballpark. I still remember the brick on the outside. I still remember the tile. It was kind of like a yellow tile in the clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the hill in the back. A lot of things I forget, but some things they're indelible in my memory, like the song that Jerry Klein sang, why I should remember that, I have no idea. Maybe it pertained to me a little bit, But
Well, you're in good company. Interestingly enough, when I was interviewing Phil Regan, I said the same thing. We just went through the same scenario with Jerry Klein. He goes, Greg, he had a song, and he sang it just as you sang it.
is that right?
Danny Carnevale, interviewed him 2 years ago upstairs. He goes, Greg, there was a song by Jerry Klein, and it went like this. Al Taylor separately interviewed him. Separate song.
It's that amazing.
So I put together a little video on Jerry Klein, extracting things like this. And throughout the theme, throughout the entire thing on Jerry Klein was guys like you doing what you just did.
Isn't that amazing? That's amazing. But you know what? I bet there must be 100 guys that, a good guy to interview would be Gavin Waitaki, because he spent 2 years there.
Oh, is he around?
He's in Michigan.
Michigan?
Yeah, Michigan.
Yeah.
I think he's still alive.
Yeah.
Wow, we didn't have coaches there, of course. We just had a manager, and he had to do it all.
What was Danny like?
He used to yell at me all the time because I didn't throw strikes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't trying.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me what I'm doing wrong. But, he used to yell and scream at me from the dugout, and I had no recourse. I'd take my hat off and put it over my face, and I'd yell all kinds of names, and I'd put it back over my head, and I got it out of my system.
Yeah.
So that's just the way it was, I didn't tell Danny that, but I'm sure he'll probably find out. But Danny's 82 now. I talked to him yesterday. He's still scouting for Cleveland, He's still working. He looks great,
Mm-hmm.
So, it's amazing.
Since this will be private stock, can I get you to repeat what you said on the field?
Okay. I remember we were the Jamestown Falcons.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the beginnings where we didn't get a hit or a run or make an error, and the announcer would say at the end of the inning, no Falcon hits, no Falcon runs, no Falcon errors. And we thought that was hilarious. I don't know, maybe it's just our minds or whatever, but that's what they used to say.
Oh, that's terrific. Now, do you remember the person who you mentioned? The person you stayed with was a city employee?
She was a lady.
Yeah.
I think her husband had passed away. She had a big home. There were 3 bedrooms upstairs, and they had a preacher, a young guy. I guess he was a preacher. He worked someplace, but he'd go out and get tanked up about every weekend, and she'd always be arguing with him. And I remember her waiting up at night. I'd go out with the guys and have a beer or two. I was only 18, 19, but you could do that in New York. In Michigan, you had to be 21. But, and she'd be waiting up for me, and she'd give me a speech and all that. She did let us use the kitchen if we wanted to cook or whatever. We had to clean it up, which was good. Yeah. We didn't do it much. We made a sandwich, maybe make some eggs, but she kind of took, she was like a mother hen.
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of guys had stayed there through the course of the years. I don't know exactly who the year before or whatever, but and I think Al, when you talked to Al, I guess he probably stayed there. Maybe he remembers her name, but she worked for the city. Yeah. That's all I remember. Yeah. I think her husband had passed away or something. She had that big house right there on Falcon Street. It's on the right-hand side, going to the ballpark.
If you probably don't even remember this, but that's the program year.
Wow. I remember going down. Ray Peoples had an office downtown upstairs. So I had to go down there and sign it when they sent me out. Where'd you get this?
A guy named Russ Dietrich. He is sort of our Mr. Baseball, and has been around a long time.
Maybe I can see the name of that. The restaurant. I almost want to say the Royal Restaurant. Let's see, it's in here. George Troutman. This is the Wellsville Braves. Okay, I remember the picture they had there was George Player. He was a good pitcher. Ted Sipkowski was the manager, the playing manager. This must have been after they sent me out.
Now, were you there at the beginning of the season?
Yes. Yeah. Until I think about June.
You were discouraged when they sent you out?
Well, I didn't know what it was all about. Never been sent out before. Didn't know what it was. And I remember they got on a little plane, and never been on a plane before in my life. And they flew me down to Jackson, Mississippi. And I sat right next to the bulkhead by the window, and there's this big fat guy sitting next to me. And I'm about ready to get sick, and he's talking, and I didn't know what was going on. I get out there, and the first thing I remember, I get off the airplane, go down those little steps, and I can see the heat coming up from the runway.
Yeah.
That's how hot it was in Jackson, Mississippi. Got in the cab, asked him to take me to the Jackson Senators. He didn't know what it was or who it was or where it was. Finally, I got to the ballpark and sat under the, it was like the old fairgrounds, and had like a walk upstairs where the offices were. And I sat there for about an hour, a couple hours, waiting for someone to come. I had no phone numbers. I didn't know if I knew how to use a payphone.
Yeah.
But finally, a couple of players came in, and then the general manager came in and got me going. And wow. Now, I remember in Jamestown, New York, I forgot about this, that we had played an exhibition game with Buffalo.
Oh.
And I started and went 6 innings, and Schoolboy Rowe pitched the last 3.
My golly.
And he got the loss. But here I am, a first-year Class A pitcher pitching against a AAA club.
Yeah.
And I still got the box score, but it had Rowe versus Rowe.
What a thrill.
Pitches against the Bisons.
And since you were from Detroit area,
from Detroit,
that was meaningful.
Well, Schoolboy Rowe was big there. Plus, when I worked out in Detroit, when I threw in the side, he was there, kind of like the scout. In fact, he said, I had an old glove, and he said, kid, let me see that glove. And he said, here, take this one. He gave me a new glove that he'd been.
Oh, wow.
Well, it wore out. It was a Spalding, and the pocket wore out, I think, the next year somewhere. But I remember when we got to spring training, he was a pitching coach in spring training, like for whole minor leagues. And I never will forget this, and I tell this story, and a lot of guys think I'm not telling the truth, but he said, son, he says, I'm going to give you 2 words of advice. He said, always hold your fastball across the seams and never drink on an empty stomach. I never forgot that. and later on I started throwing two-seamers and drinking on a full stomach. So
There you go.
there you go. You know, that's how it goes. But he actually told me that.
That's terrific.
So, school board or schooling?
You've seen so many players, so many places. Who's the best?
Oh, I played with Koufax. Koufax, pitching-wise, had to be the best. There's so many good ball players nowadays. To break them down, you'd have to almost break them down in eras.
Sure.
You know, the 60s, the 50s.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because they all have their years, you know, where everything comes together and they're on top for a while. Some will be on top for a long time. Of course, they end up in the Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
But,
Was Walt Austin good to you?
yeah, he's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't say much, but he had a lot of respect. I remember one time we were coming out of Pittsburgh, and we were going to the airport. And we had this old school bus. For some reason, that's all the traveling secretary could get. And all of a sudden, here come the pirates zooming by us in a brand new bus. And some of the guys were chirping in the back. And Rowe was one of them. He used to sit in the back of the ball players and kind of goad them on a little bit. But get on, Austin. Go ahead and get on that old bus and all that stuff. So finally, Walt just told the bus driver to stop the bus. And he stood up and said, anybody in the back there want to talk about the situation? He says, I'll be right down by the side of the bus.
Yeah.
Nobody moved. He said, okay, let's go. Nobody said a word after that. It's probably would have pinched somebody's head off.
Yeah.
You know, that's the way it was.
When you were called up, got the word that you were going to the major leagues.
Well, I made the big leagues out of spring training. I was a non-roster player.
Okay.
I'd gone to Venezuela, and I pitched for Earl Weaver down there. And I did good. And he called the Dodgers and said, hey, you got to invite this guy to spring training, take a look at him. Well, I went through the series. I got the Winter Ball Series, Caribbean Series, and so forth. And I got home, and I wasn't home 10 days, and I got a telegram, report to spring training, early camp with the Dodgers. So I went down there as a non-roster player, and I ended up pitching 19 innings in spring training, which is a lot for a non-roster guy. But what happened was I made all the road trips as a backup. And what happened was we had a couple extra inning games. We played 13 innings one game. I pitched the last 4, and that's how I built up those innings. But I made the club out of spring training. We went west. We stopped in Arizona to play some exhibition games, and we stopped in Albuquerque to play the University of Albuquerque. And while we were there, they sold Duke Snyder to the Mets to make room for me in the roster. So anyway, that's when we could carry 28 players.
Right.
And then May 1st or May 15th, they had to cut down to 25. So I was one of the 3 that got sent back to AAA, and then they recalled us in July, and I finished out the season with them. And we got in the World Series, and I beat the Yankees 4 straight. I got a nice World Series ring out of it and some money, and we only used 4 pitchers. We used Koufax twice, Drysdale once, 5 pitchers. Padres once, and Peronowski once. The rest of us guys just sat and watched. It was a great thrill.
Pretty big names there.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's terrific. Did your mom and dad have to?
My dad wasn't alive.
Okay.
My mother never saw me pitch.
No,
she never was long to see me pitch,
Yeah.
other than just around town.
right, yeah.
Never professional.
What's your highlight?
My what?
Well, your highlight.
I would guess one year in 1964 I relieved 94 games.
My God.
What makes it a little weird is my record was 17-11, all in relief. That's a lot of decisions for a relief pitcher.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and that was between the big leagues and AAA, so that's probably the highlight of my career.
Elroy Face was the only other guy that kind of had a whole lot of decisions.
Yeah, he was 18-0, I think, or 18-1.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of decisions for a relief pitcher. But anyway.
Terrific. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This has been marvelous.
I enjoyed it. I really did.
Oh,
And you see any of the guys that might have to remember me that I played with, just tell them I said hello. Al Taylor. And
do you remember Bobby Bastian? Would your paths have crossed his? He played at Hornell at 53. Lived in the Jamestown area.
I knew some of the Dodgers. I later on met up with some of the Dodgers when I went to the Dodger organization that played in Hornell. And I don't recall exactly who they are.
Sure.
You know, Don Lejean might have been one of them. All right, good.
Terrific.
Good work.
Thank you.